Say Jar Jar Crusoe.
He's to teach you about cultures.
You're grinning at me like I'm an idiot. I mean, I am an idiot, but that's completely irrelevant. I could be 100% wrong in that. I'm creating like mythology for this thing that, that shows up on Wikipedia, and then like 80 years people are going, yeah, this one dude said this, and therefore that's how internet memes start. Or I get some like nasty gram from Michael Moorcock, who's probably in his like late 80s going, you son of a bitch.
That's actually something completely, related but unrelated. You just touched on something. So Wikipedia is kind of like the go-to place for a lot of knowledge. But you just mentioned that somebody can edit it and it could become, folklore. I wonder how common that is and what kind of safeguards are against that.
Now, I remember when Wikipedia came out and everybody was like, you can't trust Wikipedia. And the argument I always had back then, I still stick to this day, is Wikipedia is the beginning of your search. It's where you start to figure out what's the broad thing, kind of like when you would go to an encyclopedia. You go and look at an encyclopedia and you look at the broad view. And then if you really wanted to learn about combustion engines, you'd go find something that talked about, specific how a, diesel engine is different than other combustion engines. And then you'd go start digging deeper in. And what it does, much like anything else, is that those people who are documenting it correctly are putting in their sources. So you can backtrack the sources. One of the good things that they do is they end up locking articles when they find people are messing. So like when Trump got elected the first time, people were destroying his page. Meanwhile, when he got convicted of sexual assault or whatever it was, people they updated it, and then people were trying to change it to take that stuff out. And so they lock those pages down so people can't mess with them, to try and keep it as clean as possible. And I think they do a really good job of keeping it as honest as I can tell from what I've seen. But if you actually look at things like your encyclopedia, if you went back to an encyclopedia from 50 years ago, dude, do you know how much wrong is in that? It would be nuts at how bad some of those entries are, based on what we know now, or things that were built on. It's kind of with what's going on with Florida, where they're trying to have the rewritten textbooks. They're, depending on who writes the information, they can change what the message is. And so I think Wikipedia is no better or worse than that, except for the fact that it is from our collective mentality of trying to make sure the information is right versus just one small group. So I'm very pro Wikipedia. Yeah. So Wikipedia, if you want to give us some ad revenue, I will sponsor you. I'm sure Pump and D will follow suit, because how else?
We started by an Auburn guy.
Oh, was it? I don't know.
Yeah. One of the founders.
War Eagle. So maybe we have an in.
I actually received a letter today from Kay Ivey. She's the governor of Alabama. Of course, it was probably something that was kind of auto-pinned, but there's a bill that's been proposed down here in Alabama where anyone that is not born an American citizen at the time of birth cannot run for public office. And I was kind of like, yeah, that's kind of crappy. I mean, there are a lot of people that get their citizenship. And once you have your citizenship, what should stop you from running for political office? Granted, yes, the president of the United States is an exception. Has been for years. Otherwise, Schwarzenegger could have run for it, a la Demolition Man. But
I think that needs to be revisited. That's my own personal opinion.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
What about the president being elected, would be foreign?
Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah.
But I want Pump to finish this thing before I.
Well, basically, it was basically a big MAGA guy that had proposed this. No one can run for political office in the state of Alabama unless you were born on American soil. And I argued, and I sent this out to all the senators. Tommy Tuberville included, the lieutenant governor, the governor, basically arguing my point that, and I sent it to you guys, a rough draft of it, basically arguing the point that once you obtain your citizenship, that's it. You're a citizen now. Nothing's different between you and the guy that was born, in Montgomery, Alabama. And, I actually did get a letter back from Kay Ivey, the governor, today, and it was talking about how any bill that goes before her, once it's made its way up through the ranks, the governor still has to sign off on it before it becomes a law. And that.
So did she say she was going to sign off on that, or no?
No. Basically, she did admit that what I had put together is going to impact her decision on that, should it come to that point.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So case in point, people, be proactive. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, I've written emails to Scott Ian of Anthrax before, and he's responded to me, and Joe Bob Briggs, and you never know where your voice is going to be heard.
Oh, Joe Bob Briggs, man.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. In relation to, 100% agree with you in relation to elected positions within the U.S. And I think in our back and forth we talked about it. My issue is I see it as a birtherism issue. Because if you allow that to be the case, then all you have to do is invalidate a single document, which would be a birth certificate. And then you can invalidate any person trying to be elected in the United States. I mean, specifically that's Alabama, but let's assume it spreads.
Yeah.
You're then able to completely eliminate those people from contention. And if one party has too much control, they can do it to everyone of the opposing party, and then you end up in a situation where the exact thing we don't want, which is a single party system, which is what we all complain about what the USSR is, or what China was, what China is, which we don't want to be. We want to be a country of compromise, and we may not say that we want to be, but we don't want, even if you think you're on the winning side, you're going to be on the losing side if only one party has control, period. Yeah. Look at history. It never works out for people in that situation. But in relation to the president, the reason I say no on the president is, and if I would even say for president and vice president, period, just because if one dies, the other one replaces. And maybe even go with Speaker of the House. Anyone who is in the line of succession has to be American born, or is automatically disqualified, something like that. The reason I say that is I want to say it was Poland back in like the 1500s, 1600s, something like that. It was before they started getting partitioned. Poland had an elected leader. So they elected their kings. And you could elect the king from anywhere. And they ended up electing kings from other countries. And if you've seen anything about what has been going on with the way that money is funneling into our country from out of the country, as far as polling and like politics and everything else, you literally could have a foreign country create a proxy person in there, a Manchurian candidate, if you want, and literally pay to get them in. You could have an Elon Musk as president who has about as much loyalty to this country as a potato. So, in relation to that one position, no, I'm like, no way in hell. There's way too much at risk on that particular end of it. So, and as much as I dislike the argument of being able to use the birtherism against somebody, that's one of the few times where if you can't validate that and get that crammed through, then you probably shouldn't be there. We haven't 300 some odd million people. We should be able to find one qualified candidate who can fit the mold without being compromised.
I think it was just it's ironic that this bill that was suggested in Alabama was from our Secretary of State. And for the Secretary of State of the United States, that's an appointment. It's not something elected. In the past, we've had two different people that were not born on American soil that were secretaries of state. And it just happenstance, they happen to be two of the most famous and effective ones, Henry Kissinger and Madeleine Albright, neither of which were born on American soil, but obtained their citizenship later.
We are a country who we intend to attract the bright, the intelligent, the clever, the people who provide industry and knowledge. Why should we not reward them? Why should we not put them in positions where they can have impact? Because if we start narrowing that down, and I know it's like, well, America for Americans. You know what? If you get citizenship, you're American. That's how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to get down to who was born here, sorry, Native Americans are the only people who get to say who the hell was born here. Everyone else here has been freeloading.
Yeah.
So, good luck on Tuberville. I'm not sure he may be able to read. I'm not sure he would understand what is being sent to him because as far as I can tell from any interview I've seen of him in Congress, I don't think the dude has read a single thing about how government works or what he's supposed to even be doing. Like, there is somebody with as much television time as he has gotten. I am appalled at how the only person I think who knows less about how the government works is Lauren Boebert in the House. And that blows my mind away that Alabama has voted this dude in, not just as like a House of Representatives individual, but an actual senator, one of your two long-standing positions, and now he's running for governor.
Look, I'm gonna put it to you like this: seeing Tommy Tuberville on TV reminds me of somebody, and I'm not gonna drop their name, but maybe somebody I went to high school with that used to annoy the shit out of me. Like, I couldn't stand to see the sight of him. That's the kind of like vibes I get when I see him on TV and he's interviewed and he's asked like a very reasonable and rational question, and his answers are just completely ignorant and totally insane. And it makes me think like, yes, this is the reason why people have so many jokes about the South and Alabama, because when this guy opens his freaking mouth, he reinforces the stereotype of like, yep, sounds like Alabama.
And that's the frustrating part to me, because there are so many good people in Alabama, and this is the representation that they get. It's not even anti-intellectualism. I mean, there is a component of that, but it's okay. We recognize this name, so we're going to vote for it. Just because you recognize the name doesn't mean it's good. I mean, I recognize Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, I wouldn't have voted for him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge kind of problem there. But it's just, I don't. For people who complain about how things are and how bad things are, and maybe it's the Southern hospitality thing. Well, we're not going to talk about it because it's bad. You kind of need to talk about it. Like, you're driving down the road and, the person, like, you go for 10 miles and every house is either like rotted out or, there's dead cars in the yard, and people, you clearly are not doing well. You drive by that and you don't even think, we could be doing better as a state. There's plenty in the state that could reward the state on how to do things. And Mississippi is the same bucket. Like, what the hell is wrong with Mississippi? I get Louisiana. Louisiana has a huge problem. It's called their major city keeps getting pounded by hurricanes, and it's already 10 feet underwater. That's kind of a little bit of a problem.
They also have a history of corruption within their state government.
Yeah.
Well, that too, yeah.
Remember the televangelist Jimmy Swaggart?
Was he from Louisiana?
He's from, his ministry was based down there.
Really?
In Baton Rouge.
Okay.
And he's also, his cousin is Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah.
And the country music singer Mickey Gilley. That's why all this is like connected.
You look at all these places where they're complaining about how bad things are. And I've never seen like the level of homelessness we've been dealing with now, be it here or anywhere. It like the volume of it. I think probably the closest I could think of is when we were kids in the 80s, and how bad New York, like inner New York, was in New York City. I don't know how this isn't impacting our politics. How is this not getting in through everybody's head that we are crumbling internally, and it is not the corporations, it is not the CEOs, it is not Washington politicians, it's not all these people that are making us, that are crumbling, that they are making us crumble, but it is not them that is crumbling. It's us. It's the lower class who is getting forced out of housing. It is the middle class being forced down into the upper echelons of the lower class, or even deeper into the lower class. It's the upper class who is then spreading that gap. And how do we get that message through to people's heads that, be it Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, whatever, the goal is not being met. We are not yielding a destination or a desire of where we want to be or where we should be. We've lost our ability to understand a message that, and I think going way back to the social contract, that's kind of where I got into the social contract, was trying to figure out what the original message was, because I had never read it. But then how do we reinforce that concept of how we're all in this together? People think that it's like my personal freedom, my individual freedom, but we're not. At no point in time is it your personal freedom. You have a freedom, the natural freedom of being a human, and that is it. And that can be taken away instantly without the support of your neighbors, the people down your block, the society you live in, and eventually your state, your country, your country's allies. And so the more we turn our back on who we are as a group, the easier it is for us to be broken up and beaten down and taken apart. I just don't know how that message gets transmitted. How do we realize that despite the things we disagree on, we all want success. We all want to be better. We all want to live healthy. We want to live as long as we can. There's not a single person out here who isn't striving to exist. Even the people who aren't are the ones who are experiencing some medical emergency where living is more painful than ceasing to exist. Those kind of things are very universal. And so I don't know. Do you guys listen to Heather Cox Richardson?
Can't say I do.
Huh?
No, I cannot say I do.
So she's been doing a lot of podcasting out there. She she's actually a historian, and the funny thing is, so somebody pointed me her way, and the thing that really got me listening to her is, well, she has a map of Maine behind her head. And I was like looking at her when she was doing one of her podcasts. I'm like, man, that looks really familiar. I'm like, that's Maine. I don't know where. And then I looked her up, and it's like, yep, she's from Maine. So, but I almost want to ask her, and I mean, she has so many followers at this point, so the idea of actually getting an answer on it, but whether or not, like, almost everything she's saying resonates with me. Like, I get it. It's pragmatic, it's rational, it's understandable and digestible. And I kind of wonder whether or not New England politics historically is just different than elsewhere. Like, due to the fact that I was raised in Maine, do I think differently to some extent than people do elsewhere? Because is there a cultural setup to how we think about politics? Like, does Alabama and Mississippi have issues with their politics because that's how everybody handles it? That's how they run the show there, and that's how it's always been and how it always will be. And if it is how it has always been, how do you reset it? And who's preventing you from resetting it?
Yeah. I think that's valid, because I think you're going to have every state, or at least every region, they're going to have their own idea of how things are done, and it's just going to be business as usual. I mean, look at when you get into a political season where there's a lot of mudslinging, a lot of ugliness. Well, to a certain extent, some of that is expected where it's going to be coming from. And they'll be like, yeah, that's just part of the game. We see it a lot here in the Deep South. Certainly in Alabama, I see political commercials from Mississippi and Florida. Same thing. There's going to be a lot of the business as usual. Let's go ahead and just ratchet it up and turn up the nastiness of it. And
politics doesn't have to be that way, and that's where it's refreshing seeing, like, I think it was Minnesota or Wisconsin, where the two candidates for the position, I think it was like a House position or a state House position, they literally ran ad campaigns together, and they're like, here's the deal, we disagree on the topics, but we don't hate each other. There's no, like, we're not mudslinging, but we both agree that we're good people at the end of the day, and that's what really matters. It's up to you to pick what platform you want, what direction you want this to go on, not necessarily who can make the other one look to be the most horrible person. And that's as much as, so a friend of mine was asking me about Jay Jones, the guy who was running for Attorney General in Virginia, said some things about shooting people, clearly in jest, but probably with a little bit of,
shooting people?
Yeah, the Speaker of the State House of Delegates. So he was joking with a Republican, another member of the House of Delegates, and he was commenting about the Speaker of the House, and clearly didn't like the guy, and was like, yeah, I'd like to shoot him and his wife because of what their politics are, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, it looked really bad. And everybody's like, oh, man, the horrible rhetoric. And I'm like, yes, it sucks. Dude should pull out. But notice so the Republican cohort in the House of Delegates, when did she release that information? Or when did the Republican Party release that information? When it was too late to replace him on the ticket, which was a guarantee to let the other guy in the IRS basically win it. And everybody's like, well, they need to stand down. Well, if you have that information and you're waiting it as like a final drop, you haven't given us an option. And so we either need to pick the guy who would jokingly execute this dude and his wife because of their politics, or we have to take the dude who won't defend us against Trump. The state made a decision. They went, we are going to have to kind of overlook that. Now, whether or not he stays in that position and they do a special election and get him booted out and then do a special election, I don't know what they're going to do. But you didn't give us a fair chance, and you did this surprise drop on us on this dude, and so the state just kind of went, all right, you want us to pick between party politics and questionable attitudes. The state, and I was telling another friend this, I've never seen this occur. When you see those like little charts of the state and where the voting goes, like last election, it might be like an arrow to the left, 0.2 points, but it's like a shorter arrow, and then arrow to the right in red that would say it went more Republican or whatever. I don't think I've ever seen a whole state map where the whole thing went one direction.
Yeah.
Everything. Every Republican county. And it wasn't like Democrats won all the way down the block. There were a bunch of races where Republicans ended up winning in the state, but there was not a single end of it where a majority of the votes didn't go Democrat total when it came to the county or town breakdown. It was nuts. The whole thing went blue. And I think that's the thing, that if the Republicans are really intending to listen to this, which it doesn't seem like they intend to, they seem to want to ignore it. I think that's an indication that people don't give a rat's ass what this is. A wholesale rejection of everything that Trump is feeding to us. And it's not an embracing of the Democratic Party. It's a full-scale rejection of everything that's going on in Washington. And hopefully they listen.
Yeah.
But I doubt it.
I'm seeing that a lot. I'm seeing a lot of, I'm not a Democrat, but I'm not going to support what the Republicans are doing. So it's just a rejection right now. I'm seeing of a lot of that.
Yeah.
They're not claiming themselves to be anything else, but they're just saying, I'm definitely not this.
There's something going on.
Yeah.
So
when you got kids going to school and stuff like that, man, and you're a parent, kind of things that stick out in the back of your mind.
Oh yeah.
I just hope that, and I know, the majority of people are responsible gun owners. It's just that, if you've been keeping up with the news, it still does raise anxiety, so that's all.
Yeah. My daughter talks about people that are threatening to bring weapons to school, and then the police end up coming up to her school.
Yeah. I mean,
well, they had they just had a verdict on the elementary school teacher here in Virginia who got shot like a year or two ago. One of the students brought in a gun and shot her, but they just had like a $10 million verdict for her in relation to the principal or something not properly policing the ownership of the gun or bringing the gun in. I got into it with somebody on that, and I can't. And I mean, I don't know if my argument's right or not, but one of the major issues I have is we look at drugs and we go, okay, cool. There's drugs on the street. The way we stop the drugs, we stop the drug flow, and we can, like, that's our plan. It's a bad plan because it doesn't ever seem to work. Mm-hmm. You need to stop the desire for the drug to make it non-profitable. But like guns, we don't look at it the same way. We don't go, okay, well, let's stop the flow. The reason there are incidents that occur is because there's so many freaking guns on the street. There are guns that people end up buying and it gets stolen, or people end up buying through straw sales that they're shady.
Yeah.
That we don't really have it controlled. And one of the major things in the language of the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia. What happened to that one hyphenated word, well-regulated? Do we not? Did somewhere in the last 200 years we forget what the hell that means? It clearly is something that can be regulated. Yeah. And not just regulated, well regulated, meaning it is very much observed and controlled and handled. Honestly, if you own a weapon, cool, you have to sign up with the militia. That's my argument. You have to go for training every year to make sure that you are properly militia trained. You have to go for a psych eval to make sure that you're not going to buckle under pressure should combat occur. Cool. Let's treat it. Let us be like what is it? Finland. I think Finland. Everybody's trained. They're like, it's either Finland or Norway. One of those Scandinavian ones up there. Dude, they are crazy. All of them have weapons. They have like minimal gun violence because everybody knows how to use a weapon and use it well. They have to. Let's do that here. Cool. Everybody come on in. It's Militia Day. You want a gun? You go to Militia Day.
Only thing about that, though, is, who's guiding what the militia really kind of directs this attention towards? Is the militia going to be politically motivated?
Well,
that's the thing, especially up here. I think that's it. Always ends up being that way. Like, there's a reason why I don't really join any veterans groups up my way, because I know where they lean.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not for me. So, yeah.
Sometimes be the rock in the ocean or in the river that is immovable and unyielding. Go in and be that person who goes, I don't think it works that way. I don't think you really understand what's occurring.
You know who I think is about to feel like they're in the squeeze box or in the hot seat for the next 4 years, because everybody's going to be watching that dude, is the mayor of New York.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody's going to be like, okay, they got 4 years. Let's see what he does.
Yep.
And there's probably going to be people, hopefully not, but, there could be people that could be trying to sabotage his efforts and try to be like, see, democratic socialism doesn't work.
The Republican candidate who lost already said that effectively, if the second you have a misstep, I'm coming after you. So Mamdani is the guy you're thinking of. He's not going to, unless he hits on every cylinder, he is going to have a rough ride. The hilarious part is whether or not he is a solution. Him and other individuals are the future of this country.
He reminds me a lot of AOC.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely has a lot of that vibe.
His entire staff is female.
Yeah. And of note, he actually is a big wrestling fan too. I know that goes to another show.
Hold on, I think I got the background. I can switch. Where is it?
But that was actually kind of the stuff that was coming out where they were trying to block his swearing in should he win. That's kind of where I ended up starting off with noticing that the bills were being proposed down here, trying to keep it the birther bills, basically, as you mentioned it, Ryan. That's kind of where all that stemmed from. As soon as he started getting traction, that's when these bills suddenly appeared, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's not very American."
Mm-mm. No, and one of the fights I had about Mamdani is, number one, I don't live in New York City.
Yeah,
it's not my problem.
No,
and if New York City goes down, and all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh my God, New York's impacted our economy." Well, maybe we should have worried more about how things were going in New York City so that the people didn't vote somebody like that in, if that was what your concern was. At no point in time is anybody really admitting responsibility that either they're responsible for somebody that they can't stand getting in there, which means they should have done some efforts to make that better, or that maybe the current system sucks in a way that somebody with that platform can get voted in. And instead, kind of like you're saying about the thing going on in Bama, instead, what we're going to do is we're not going to acknowledge that. We're going to change the system just so that we don't have somebody like that doing it. And the idiocy on that is, all right, if it wasn't Mamdani, it's going to be somebody else.
Exactly.
So you're not stopping the problem. You are ignoring the problem and hoping to dam it up behind a wall. And the worst part is, the longer you do that, all it does is build pressure. And
it's like a giant game of wampum, if you remember that.
Yeah. Or the finger in the dike. Really, I think is better. You're putting the finger in the dike, trying to stop these little things, not realizing that the dike is failing on you. Yeah. And at some point in time, you're going to flood and drown because you can't stop all these. And it goes back to my comment about poverty. Like, we're looking at groups and groups being impoverished in this country, and we are doing nothing to stop it.
It's funny. It's like there's a guy that I work with, and he's like really big into that whole football culture thing. And then when the subject was brought up about some players having, concussions and things like of that sort, his whole attitude was, well, they knew what they were getting to when they signed the contract. Basically, like very, very dismissive, and I was just kind of like thinking to myself, it's like, yep, and you're the reason why, and I'm like, ... like, it's that whole mentality I just can't stand.
I think some of our inability to talk politics as a country, we actually use football as a surrogate instead.
Yeah.
So we'll be able, Alabama and Auburn fans will, or Michigan and Michigan State, or name your conference rival, we'll be able to communicate with each other and be like, well, yeah, I root for that team except when it plays this team. Or they'll be able to have civil conversations, but be able to disagree of who they root for. That's something that's been lost with our politics. It's gotten so heated that we can't even communicate with each other anymore. And football has kind of become that surrogate where we can try and have that middle conversation. If you follow where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I 100% buy it though. Partially because, I mean, how many times did you see people with the Alabama Auburn split where they're like, "To hell with you, man. You're this," and it's like, why? Just because I went to Auburn? It's like, yeah. It's like, are you an idiot? Like, okay. And I think politics. Part of the problem with politics now is it is tribal. Like rooting for your team, be it like a pro team or a college team or a high school team, whatever, it is a level of tribal mentality. Me versus them, that you've identified under a flag of what you support. And I think with politics, it shouldn't be what flag are you standing underneath. We are all under one flag. But it's how to make that flag strong. And which side of the ideological beliefs do you stand on to make the flag strong? And you're not standing for the flag, you're standing for the ideas and the ideals and ideas that those people are representing. And if those people don't represent your ideas and your ideals, you don't stand with that group. And people are so hell-bent on, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, instead of, what crack are you smoking? Like, the Democrats are selling us out to big business, have been for the last 40, 50 years. Republicans are selling us out to big business last 40 or 50 years. There's a reason people are pissed off at both parties, because neither of them are doing what the people want. And at what point do we, as an electorate, go, I'm not running with a banner, and just say, screw it. Fuck it all, I'm gone. Okay, you're going to have to bleep that one out. But at what point do we stand up and we say, we're done with it? And there was I don't know if it was Heather Cox Richardson, which was going to be the second time I bring her up, or somebody else who made a comment about the blue wave in Virginia. And some Democrats were coming out and saying that, oh, well, this is a show that the Democrats are back. No, this is not a show that the Democrats are back. This is a show that people are sick and tired of Trump crap and what the current administration, total, including Trump and not including Trump, are doing. It is a vote against what is occurring, not for what they are saying to do. Where I agree. Mamdani is an exception to that. I think people voted for Mamdani for that.
That's the vibe I've been getting. I think like people are maybe starting to realize that, hey, these two parties don't work for us. How do we counter this? Now is like the question. How do we organize and counter big money in politics?
I think you're right. And based on what I see, the younger generation of Democrats are making that change. Whether you like Mamdani or not, I think the platform he's pushing, if he can get it through, is reflecting that. AOC is reflecting that. The Talafiero, I think out of Texas, is pushing that. It is the old guard Democrats who are fighting it. And like, I don't know, it's the Schumers and the Pelosi's, and to be honest, even Hakeem Jeffries seems like he's still towing the old guard Democrat line instead of realizing that the tides are changing. And the people need to be given something. We're paying taxes to make our world better, be it through defense of our country or defense of ourselves internally. And if we are not seeing the return on that investment, why do we keep investing? The Republicans, from what I can see, and especially with the pushback against a lot of the things that are going on against there are some that are turning around saying this isn't right, but you're actually seeing more people fleeing the party instead of fighting for the party, which means they don't have control of the message. They don't feel that they have any ability to manage it, much less facilitate changes needed to allow them to feel like they're going to be winning. They see this as a losing streak. And to be honest, I think a lot of the people that are on that end of it, there are some that are just hanging on because it's a paycheck. And then I see others that are looking at it for opportunities to get ahead. And so, I mean, I wish I had a better view of that we had two representative parties, but we don't.
I got a prediction. I think the people that supported him and voted for him are probably going to go covert and underground, and whenever confronted.
That's what they did when Biden got elected.
Kind of like when the Nazis lost, and a lot of them like try to take on new identities and stuff. Just kind of pretend like the Holocaust never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's when Biden won. It was really hard to find anybody who said that they voted for Trump. Like, when that election went down, there were Trump signs all over the place. But man, when you went and talked to somebody, no, I may have voted for a Republican for this, but there was no way I could do it for Trump. It's like, okay, somebody did. Somebody clearly had it. And are you saying no in your saving face at this point? Because, I mean, a lot of people in the U.S. voted for Trump. Like higher numbers voted in that last election than have voted in a lot of elections.
I kind of think this is more than any other time that I've seen. And, all of us have been on the ground 5 decades pretty much now. I can't think of any other time when I've seen people voting against a party more so than voting for a party.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that are voting, like the blue wave you were talking about, that's a vote against the Republicans. It's not a vote for the Democrats. It's almost like a quasi third party right now, the non-party, that I won't be associated with this. I'm not saying I'm going to vote for that, but I'm definitely not this.
And that's where I think it's an indication that we clearly don't have two representative parties. And we either need a third party to break everything up, or we need the parties to reinvent themselves. And assuming that the young guard can get control, and it's not going to be our generation that takes control of the Democratic Party. It's going to be the ones behind us. If they take control of the Democratic Party, which I see being more probable than the young guard taking control of the Republican Party, you're going to have one party that is representative. They very well could turn that into a long-term blue wave, much like what happened with FDR. We could be looking at a second New Deal, and it's going to take the Republican Party to reinvent themselves to identify and connect with the people and expand on that. The irony of it is they did do that. And that's why we're in the situation we're in right now. They went and built grassroots things on the local level over the last 40 years. They've been getting into every school board. They've been getting into all the towns and municipalities and all the state representation.
Hey, to back up what you're saying, where someone could argue and say what you're saying is hyperbole, I would like to also add to what you're saying. I don't know if you remember, but when we were going through school, and they did this for a while, they had this little event at the beginning of every school year that was called See You at the Poll. And it's all about taking the campus back for Christ. And, and all that stuff was like tied into the Republican Party. I went to 2 of them back when I was in probably about a freshman in high school, I think. And then I stopped going after that. So
I can't wait to find out what all of our subtitles showed when we have these up on YouTube. I haven't even looked to see what it interprets it as yet.
Oh my god, that would be fun. We should do a whole episode just making fun of different errors on the translations.
We could just have a whole episode of nonsense and see what it deciphers it as.
Hold on, isn't every one of our episodes an episode of nonsense?
I think it might be, yeah.
I mean, it's all under this thin veil that we're talking of actual serious topics and ideas and everything else. But realistically, it's D having his cricket and having some chips. It's me drinking 5 different cans of things that are sitting on my desk at any particular point in time. I don't know.
Don't even kind of throw me under the bus.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what malice you bring to the palace. So, but all right, we'll wrap it here. Everybody, have fun.